Kaimere is a distant planet. It is defined by waves of life brought from Earth and set free to evolve independently in this new context. The indigenous life of the planet, swarms of microbes called magic by the people who live there, are what harvest Earth organisms and make copies on Kaimere. As the asteroid which concluded the Mesozoic never struck Kaimere, dinosaurs remain the dominant terrestrial megafauna.
Bovids are an extremely successful group of herbivorous mammals on Earth. While they are ancestrally small woodland browsers, several genera in the bovine tribe have independently produced enormous grazers like bison, gar, and the numerous wild ancestors of domesticated cattle. This appears to have been a fairly recent radiation in response to the cooling climate and eruption of yet more grasslands throughout Earth. There are two major bovine clades: the cattle, which produce the likes of cow and bison, and the buffaloes, which includes Cape and water buffalo. While they diverged in the Miocene, it appears that the Pliocene is when they truly shined. There is evidence that bovids have been in Kaimere since the middle Miocene as small woodland browsers, hard to distinguish from little antelope species. Many still persist in the known world. The giant bovines, however, are comparatively rare to the relative rarity of grasslands. Southern Arvel affords them vast grassland opportunities in which bison and aurochs have thrived, the great sanctuary of this clade. Housey grass is of poor nutrient quality that ruminants like cattle don't thrive in. Horses, pronghorns, and other hindgut fermenters make better use of it. The only bovine of the Housey prairie is the giant buffalo, which uses its tremendous size and bulk feeding to make its caloric ends meet. In southern Nikar, which gets a lot more rain than Housey can thrive in, there are more fertile, diverse grasslands. The western crescent has aurochs and gar, though fern and horsetail prairies are just as common and limit grassland in the two species thrive in. In the eastern crescent, irrigated both by storms within the Crescent Sea and those from out in the oceans to the east, is a vast wetland with swamp and marsh. Here resides one of Kaimere's most abundant bovines, the water buffalo. Harvested from the Pleistocene 1.5 million years ago, the Kaimeran water buffalo is a distinct species from wild buffalo of Earth, though they are extremely close relatives and look basically identical. They have the same dark skin with sparse and coarse hair. They average slightly larger, with cows around 700 kilos and bulls over a ton, with the large males sometimes reaching 1.5 tons. They are considered the same size as Earth gar, though are shorter and more heavily built. The horns are larger than water buffalo of Earth, with a record of 2.5 meters along the outer edge. Their larger ears are the easiest way to tell these two species apart, as water buffalo of Earth are quite slender in comparison. Grass is extremely common in this region. Plenty for water buffalo to share with two species of hippopotamus, although only the common hippo is a grass specialist, numerous wetland deer, infrequent wandering gar, several ground sloths, and thescelosaurs. Competition for grass against the equally abundant herds of common hippo is thought to make both species more aggressive. While hippopotamus of Earth have earned a reputation for aggression, which is largely around defending sources of water, they and water buffalo in the Seridic Wetlands instead are more territorial over grazing opportunities. Water buffalo mostly feed on grass, preferring wetland grass and floodplains, though they are often seen to desire some leaves in their diet and will readily venture deep into woody swampland to browse a few times a year. The salt marshes toward the coast are also an abundant source of grass, and bachelor herds especially are fond of spending time near the coasts and packing in the abundant grazing opportunities, especially since the competing hippos appear to have a lower tolerance of salt water. Having a greater versatility helps limit competition with hippos, though they still overlap and indeed fight over resources. Also like their earthly cousins, water buffalo live in clans, though these clans are often a bit larger, with 50 cows forming the average congregation. The eldest cows lead the herd even when bulls travel with them. These clans form loose herds up to 1,000 animals. The herds tend to migrate together, moving into higher ground during the wet season, but never getting too far from water sources. Their gestation period is almost a year, longer than their earthly kin, likely due to their slightly greater size. They often wait a year before their next pregnancy. Cows reach maturity and tend to live with their mothers in the same clan, or at least a different clan in the same herd. Males are often driven from the clan and herd once they reach a year old. They form bachelor herds and travel far before settling down. Bulls can mate as early as 2 years, but usually aren't dominant enough within the bachelor herd until they are at least 5 years old. Mating can occur year-round, though it is more common in colder months as heat stress reduces libido. Bachelor herds are independent units. They travel far and wide within the wetlands, while female herds tend to remain in a far more restricted range. Bachelor herds often migrate and feed the main female herd, especially in winter when they seek to mate, but they don't decide where the herd goes. These decisions are made by the eldest cows of the dominant clans. On Earth, bulls are often solitary by their 5th year, but Seridic buffalo are much more tolerant of others of the same sex, with bachelor herds ranging between 10 and 30 individuals. They regularly challenge and assert claims of dominance, but while these are often spectacular battles, they rarely leave lasting injuries. They are readily set aside their differences when threats arise. This greater cooperation is no doubt a consequence of the Seridic Wetlands being such a predator-dense environment. Water buffalo endure 2 crocodilian species that hunt them, the Seridic crocodile and the hanju, a tusked relative of gators. Bachelor herds in the salt marshes are also under threat of a saltwater crocodile, and numerous smaller species also pose a threat to calves. Adult cows in a coordinated group are often able to defend themselves from Seridic crocodiles, but a large male hanju is a threat that requires flight to high ground. Female hanju are able to follow them on land, but in this terrain the buffalo have the advantage of speed and maneuverability. The large males of this species are often only able to make a few strides before they stall out and must return to water. Bakar, Kurajaku, and the occasional Zentaur that venture into the Seridic Wetlands have all been documented eating buffalo. The marine hyaenodont Renjuyo will readily hunt both sexes, though they tend to prefer weaker individuals from the rear of the herd, so as not to draw much attention and retribution from the healthier adults and bachelor herds. Red panthers are formidable and accomplished killers, but usually must stick to smaller cows and calves owing to the size difference, and cohorts of toms make up most of the buffalo killers. They will pursue and hunt in the water, though most of the kills in the jungle and woody swamps that the herds sometimes visit, as it is much harder for these larger herbivores to maneuver. Unlike the negative buoyancy of their muscular bodies making it so hippos cannot swim, water buffalo are able to swim, though they still are of a sufficient density that they cannot maintain a sustained stroke for long. They can hold their breath for several minutes. They don't feed as much on abundant water hyacinth common throughout the wetlands, and indeed most of their feeding is on land plants. For water buffalo, water is more a means of cooling off. They don't have easy means of shedding heat otherwise, and especially in summer, the Seridic Wetlands can be extremely hot. It can also be a reliable means of defense, such as when faced by Zentaur or red panthers, but being near land can also be critical in avoiding crocs, Kurajaku, and Renjuyo. Water buffalo are not restricted to the Seridic Wetlands. Indeed, the rainforests of both Arvel and northern Nikar have species. These 2 forest buffalo are quite similar in appearance to one another, but have diverged enough to each qualify as their own species. They live in much smaller groups, and adult males are solitary. While they take any grass they can find, their diet is mostly comprised of deciduous leaves, fruit, and herbs. Not much is known about these elusive animals. Also, like their earthly cousins, the water buffalo of the Seridic Wetlands has been domesticated. The Serid domesticated them long ago, perhaps as far back as the age of witches. Domesticated water buffalo are smaller than their wild kin, sometimes as much as half the size in some smaller breeds. Though many breeds have come and gone, today there are numerous modern ones specialized for labor, dairy, meat, ritual combat, settlement defense, and riding. Riding is uncomfortable given the wide torso of this animal, but the benefits of an all-terrain mount seem to be worthwhile. According to accounts of Seridic conquest by the Chakati Empire, buffalo riders not only contributed to surprise troop mobility, they were formidable opponents against Imperial cavalry, with midnight attacks on Imperial camps by buffalo riders erupting from the water, trashing the camp, and trampling soldiers asleep in their tents. For all this formidable reputation, it should come as no surprise that peacetime applications are far more common in modern times. As imperial domesticates tend to require solid ground and grazing, the Serid are much more reliant on water buffalo. They are quite flexible, able to eat just about any vegetation near settlements as long as they do get some grass, and are easy to train and leave to pasture and return when called. Herd defense instincts are helpful both in deterring predators from getting too close to settlements and repelling human invaders. Fires on the outskirts of settlements must be maintained, but these are reliable wards for many theropods. Zentaur may be the biggest challenge, as they are both capable swimmers over ditches and able to effortlessly climb over mounds that keep out most aquatic predators, but thankfully these are quite rare in Imperial lands thanks to intensive culling efforts centuries prior. Meat and milk are the main contributions of water buffalo. Most Seridic settlements have a cow clan or two and trade their males with some cows and neighbors to keep the population healthy. The Serid have a lot of fish and crocodile in their diets, but the water buffalo is by far the most commonly included source of meat. Hippos are hunted, but not only is their meat not as desirable, they are far more aggressive and much harder to maintain and contain. While wild buffalo can certainly demonstrate formidable violence against predators and competitors, even a wild buffalo will often become quite docile in captivity, showing this aggression is a learned and necessary response, not their natural disposition. As one might expect, the distinction between wild and domesticated is quite blurred when the range between these two overlap. Plenty of wild animals join domesticated clans or mate with penned animals, and domesticated buffalo have in many instances gone feral and integrated with wild herds. The smaller average size of the domesticated, coupled with their reduced fear responses, means they often fare poorly and are subordinate to their wild counterparts when they do join herds, but integration is often enough that assembly researchers estimate that there are very few truly wild populations left, as most have at least a little bit of feral ancestry. This is thought to account for, if nothing else, the occasional coat variation in wild buffalo. The Serid have also exported the water buffalo through trade. Other regions of the Crescent, Kadan, and Kajar all have populations of Seridic water buffalo in their own wetter pastures. The Colleen and Picardian are both lactose intolerant as a general rule, but still keep water buffalo in nearby wetlands. Their ease of care means they are often preferred over native domesticates, though it must be said their inability to get by on ferns and horsetails does limit their use in mainland Arvel, Picardia, and many Colleen islands. The water buffalo is common in their native range, rivaling the common hippo as the most abundant large mammal herbivore. They not only shape the wetlands with their movement, their dung spreads nutrients and seeds, and their bodies provide for thousands of predators and scavengers. The wetlands are more lush for their presence, and in this marsh Eden, they have been rewarded with tremendous abundance. Cheers to Ian for sponsoring this episode. The episodes of November are focused on animals we will meet in this year's Megaraptoran saga, the Fable of Faigemi. As with the saga of Tanir and Baru, the Fable of Faigemi will take place in a chapter every Tuesday. This story will follow a young Bakar as she comes of age in the Seridic Wetlands. Thanks again to Ian, to my Patreon supporters, and thank you so much for watching. Cheers, folks!